Alright guys, we're going to get started with our first SwiftUI project. We're going to take our a project we've done before, the Pokedex, and we're going to rebuild it in SwiftUI. You'll learn some new things along the way. One of the things you'll notice pretty quickly is that there's a ton less code in SwiftUI, but you'll also notice that it's a little, if you want to wander off the normal beaten path, it's a little bit more of a pain in the butt. But we're going to go ahead and get started with it, and hopefully we'll learn a lot along the way. So as usual, if you get lost, just hit pause on this sucker, and you can replay it. You can always reach out to me, set up some office hours, that kind of stuff. So really simply, I'm just went to File, New Project like normal. I'm going to make a single view app as normal. Only the new thing is down here, instead of user interface, it normally says storyboard for you. You're going to change storyboard to SwiftUI. I'm going to give it a good name. So I'm going to say this is my in-class demo Pokedex SwiftUI. And I'll share this demo file with you guys. Create it. All right, and so right out of the gate, you'll see there's a couple things that are different inside of a project that's got SwiftUI as a storyboard versus a storyboard is its UI creator. You see over here on the left-hand side, I don't have any main storyboard stuff. I do have the launch screen, but that's it. And you'll see that I also don't have, it launches at the split view. What's happening is here on the left-hand side is SwiftUI. This looks like Swift. It's not quite Swift. Looks like Swift, and it's going to be what I'm going to use to build my user interface. And on the right-hand side, this is basically the preview of the user interface being built. By default, this is not running. Why? Because this is basically a little mini simulator that runs inside of Xcode. And so you got to tell it like, hey, I want you to do this automatic preview stuff for me. So hit resume. You'll notice that as we go, it will turn off resume, or it will turn off previewing kind of willy-nilly. What it's trying to do is reserve resources for your computer. Because, again, running a simulator inside of Xcode can be a lot of heavy lifting for your computer. And so sometimes you'll notice it and you'll be like, why aren't things changing? And they'll just be like, oh, yeah, I have to hit resume. It's not 100% clear that things aren't working sometimes. All right, and so we'll see here really quickly, right out of the gate, we see the power of SwiftUI, where I just have it launches this little hello world text, and then it highlights it right here. There's the hello world right there. If I want to change it, I can just say, instead of saying hello world, I can say hello IMS 351. And bam, it changes it in real time. That is incredibly powerful and pretty sweet. I'm going to go ahead and use this as a starting point for my Pokedex. So if you recall how the Pokedex works is I have a table of a bunch of different Pokemon. I tap on a specific one to get a detailed view of that Pokemon. So we'll go ahead and build that out, and then we'll enhance it as we go over the next couple of class periods. So right now we have just simple text right here. I'm going to change that and say, hey, I don't want that just to be text. I want that to be the text of the specific Pokemon in my list item. So I'll call that Pikachu. And then I need some more text. So what I do is I go over here to the little plus button like I normally would, and I still type in label because it's muscle memory. You'll probably learn better to actually type in text, which is what it is, but it's the same basic concept as a label. And I drag it into the preview, and you can see the little gray box that's appearing? That's basically how do you want to affix these two together. You don't have to affix them together, but it's a really good idea too, which for reasons we'll get into later. I'm going to go ahead and affix to the bottom, and you can see instantly it does two things for me. Over here in the code, it puts in another text and says placeholder. Well, I can go ahead and change that to say something like what I want it to be. So type : electric. But also, it created what's called a VStack and wrapped both of those text elements inside of it. VStack just stands for vertical stack. And now these two elements are tied to one another. And so if I move them around, like putting them inside of a table, they'll be connected to each other. And if I have different size devices, like a watch instead of an iPhone, they'll be connected to each other. So it basically makes it so that they're kind of layout independent. They're just relationally tied to each other from a layout perspective, but their overall global location inside the layout is agnostic. It doesn't really care about that. Okay, but I can tweak out these V-stacks in a bunch of different ways. So for instance, right now, I'm not 100% loving how these two are centered on each other. I think that looks a little silly. So I can take my V-stack, and over here you can see I can get some UI changes. So I want to say I want those two things to be aligned to the left of each other. And kablamo, now they're aligned to the left of each other. I can also get some other modifiers, like if I want to make this thing bigger or heavier. So Pikachu is now in bold, but the type is now a little bit lighter. And I might make it, let's say the type is gray. Thin's too thin. It's hard to read that on this screen. And you can see as I'm making those changes over here, it's generating the code for me here. So the VStack has an alignment of leading, which means they're both left justified. I've changed the font weight on the text and set it to bold, and same thing here with color. Now you see what it does is it's saying this font weight is impacting this text. I personally have a hard time reading this. The way I like to think of it is like that, but Xcode doesn't like that. Totally legal, but it will generate it this way. Either way, just understand that this dot is impacting this object, just like in the normal dot syntax where you go from Earth to North America to United States to Ohio to Oxford. You would go Earth dot North America dot United States dot Oxford. Same thing here. We're saying the globally thing here is the text Pikachu, and I want to modify its font weight, or I want to modify its font weight and its foreground color, etc., etc., etc. Okay, cool. So that's great. I now have Pikachu electric type. Awesome, but I don't want just Pikachus. I want to make these things connected to each other. And so I want to make a stack of them, a table. So I want to have Pikachu, and underneath Pikachu, Charmander, underneath Charmander, Articuno, and all the other hundreds of Pokemon after that. So what I'm going to do is make a table. However, we've been calling them in class, we call them lists because they look like it's just a list of stuff. But we call them table. Table is just a carryover from how iOS originally shipped and thinking about these things. And now everybody thinks of them as lists. And so SwiftUI just made the wise decision, completely jettisons the table language and just calls them lists. And so I'm going to take these two things, this vertical stack, and I'm going to wrap it inside of a list. And now I have a list that has only one thing of it in it, the VStack that holds Pikachu and type electric. But I can also have another item inside of my list. I can just take this VStack and copy paste it. And now instead of it being Pikachu, I want that one to be Charmander. And his type, I think, is fire. Sorry, I'm not much of a Pokemon Pokephile? Is that what people that like Pokemon are called? I'm not much of a Pokemon fan, but my kids are. I know Pokemon is a legendary, and also sounds like my name, so we'll say he's a legendary professor. All right, and so, sorry, that's a little bit too on the nose for me, but that's all right. So there we go. So now we have a list that holds 3 different things. And you can't see it because of my low resolution monitor, but there is a thin hairline between each one of these items inside of this list. And if I were to run it in a preview, you might be able to see a little better. But trust me, it's there. Okay, so that's cool, but it doesn't look very iOS-y. Usually iOS has like the title of the page that you're on and big text at the top of the list. And then when you scroll through the list, that text gets smaller. And so that's just a navigation view, which we've done before, only now we're not going to embed in navigation view. We're just going to create a navigation view right here in SwiftUI. And so I haven't really talked about how these things are constructed, but we'll talk about the content view in a little bit. But what's happening right here is this is the content view that holds the body. So this is all the stuff that you can see. And so inside the body, I have a list. And inside the list, I have 3 VStacks. What I'm going to do is say, well, look, the body isn't just any old body. I want to take all the stuff that's inside the body and wrap it inside of a navigation view. And so now I have a navigation view that holds a list. of those three things. And you can see it reserves some text, some space up here. What's that about? Well, that's where the label for the navigation view is going to go. So we're just going to go ahead and we need to name that sucker. So we're going to take the navigation view and say that inside that navigation view is the navigation bar title. And it's this page we'll call Pokedex. Sweet. We are well on our way. Awesome. Okay. But if you remember from last time we did this, we don't want just text inside of a Pokedex. We want to have our images. And so we're going to take these images that I found off the internet right here, Charmander, Pikachu, and Articuno. Let's put those in the order that we're talking about them for our own sanity's sake. And we're going to bring these images into Xcode so we can use them. And what's cool about this is that even though everything I'm showing you right now looks brand new, because it is, all the underlying stuff under the hood inside of Xcode is all identical. So all the kind of asset creation and management that we've already learned is totally applicable. So over here on the left-hand side, I still have assets. And those assets still include image sets. So I'm going to make 3 image sets, one called Pikachu. And Pikachu consists of an image set of, you bet it, Pikachu. You guessed it, sorry. And I'm just copying and pasting into each one of the 3 different resolutions. Again, we've talked about what that means, but we don't necessarily need that for this purpose, for this demo. I'll make another one called Charmander. And my last is Articuno. Excellent. All right, so I have my assets. Great. Now what I want to do, and you can see already it paused the preview thing, so I just had to resume. You'll run into that all the time. What it's trying to do is manage memory better for you, but, you know, it's not perfect. Okay, so now I have this text stuff, but I want to add an image. So in order to make that work, I need to just simply go in here and say, you know what? I want a new image. In this image, I'm going to put it on the left-hand side of each one of these things. So what I'm going to do, oh, shoot. What I want is an image that's on the left-hand side of each one of my, sorry, keyboard issues. Okay, I want an image that's on the left-hand side of each one of my V stacks. And so if a V stack is a vertical stack, an H stack is a horizontal stack. And so I'm going to say next to each V stack is an H stack. And inside that H stack is the V stack that we had before, but there's also going to be an image. And this image that I want is the one that I've named them based on the asset name. So that's called Pikachu. That's what I called the first one. And I'm going to do the same thing for my other 2. You can see they're getting big and wonky. Don't worry, we'll fix that. So that's this ends the V stack. That ends the H stack. Create a new one. These are inside of that. So need to indent for sanity's sake. And still need to close the H stack. Okay. And make another H stack. Same thing. Image. Articuno. And inside that H stack is not just the image, but also the V stack. And close that. So there we have our tables. Now you can see there's a problem. Each one of these images is giant, and that's not what I want. So what I want to do is make it so each one of these images is small, and fits inside the box. So to do that, we're going to take our image here and do something called resizable to it. It makes it so it's possible for this image to be resized. And specifically, I want to resize it into a frame that has a width of, we'll say, 50 pixels, digital pixels, and a height of 50 digital pixels. And width, sorry, typo. And so now my Pikachu is nice and teeny. We'll do the same thing with Charmander. Copy, paste, and Articuno, copy, paste. And so now they're all nice and tight up against each other where they're supposed to be. Sweet. That looks great. So let's walk through what this means. I'm going to scroll this over a little bit so you can see it better. So what I have here is a navigation view. And the navigation view is the main root thing in the entire body. The navigation view has a title, navigation bar title called Pokedex. And inside of it is a list that fills the rest of it. And that list consists of three H stacks. This one, and this one. And each one of those H stacks consists of an image. A V stack in turn, let me just indent this so it makes it easier to read. A V stack that's aligned to the left of two elements, the text, which is the title of the Pokemon, and the text that is the type of the Pokemon. And each one of those has some attributes that have been changed on them. All right, cool. So this is a great stopping point. Go ahead and take this, see if you can poke around with it, make some changes, like maybe add some additional Pokemon, maybe add some extra text labels that aren't just the name and the type, but maybe it's like what region that they're from or something like that. And then we'll switch back into the next video. We'll catch up where you can make it so that these lists are interactable, where you can tap on each row inside of the list and load a detail view. Just like we've done before with storyboards, where we use segues, we're going to be using something different in SwiftUI.